My initial plan to film the most interesting facts about Iceland from Reykjavik city center, but you see what sort of weather I have today. I'm not sure you're going to hear me, so let's take it inside. Even Icelandic birds are struggling to fly with this wind. So, yeah guys, let's move it indoors. That's much better and definitely less wind. Let's continue about most interesting facts about Iceland. Iceland has one of the first parliaments in the world. Iceland is believed to be one of the oldest democracies in the world, as its ancient parliament, the Althing, dates back to 930 AD and is considered one of the first ever parliaments. It was formed between the lava fields and rocky ravines of Þingvellir, where the two continental plates meet. A flag stands at the exact spot where the parliament first gathered. Iceland has the most northerly capital. Yes, I'm talking about Reykjavik. Of all 195 recognized countries in the world, Iceland has the most northerly capital. Reykjavik might sit beneath the Arctic Circle, but it still has the title of the most northerly capital in the world. As the result, wintertime you have a great chance to see the northern lights. If you head just a little bit outside of the city limits, away from the light pollution. And in summer you can catch the midnight sun around the 21st of June, which is summer solstice. Icelandics are always outnumbered. Iceland has a population of around 375,000 people, if you count all Icelanders that have ever lived since the formation, the settlement of Iceland in the late 9th century. The population still doesn't reach 1 million, but if we count all the tourists as well, we have long since surpassing 1 million. Last year alone, Iceland received more than 2 million travelers. So, in any of the coming years, Iceland might see 5 times its own population in tourists. Interesting fact number 4, and the dogs were forbidden in the capital. In 1922, a complete ban on dogs was enforced in Reykjavik. However, at the same time, Icelanders living in the countryside could own the dogs, working dogs for farming. But in the capital, in Reykjavik, it was forbidden to have a dog as a pet due to increased cases of fatal tapeworms passed on from the dogs. Rules have changed since then, and now people from Reykjavik can have a dog as a pet if they get permission from the municipality and also pay a registration fee. But Reykjavik still remains culturally a cat city, with felines prowling the streets, hovering at doors, and winding around lots of tourists asking for a scrap of fish. Yeah! It's been estimated that there is at least 1 cat for every 10 residents of Reykjavik. Crazy fact number 5. Beer was banned in Iceland until 1989. In 1915, a complete prohibition was in place across Iceland. However, in 1922, the government decided to allow Spanish wine because the Spanish were an important trading partner and they drove a hard bargain. Either Iceland would carry on buying wine from them, or they're going to stop entirely buying salted cod from Iceland. Iceland's most profitable exports at the time. Prohibition was lifted in 1935, but beer remained banned because some used to believe that it made people drink more. And it's a cultural ties with Denmark, which seemed unpatriotic. After Iceland gained independence from Denmark, in the decades that followed, the discussion over legalizing beer was the country's hot topic, with lots of debates on the TV attracting a lot of attention. Eventually, the beer ban was lifted on the 1st of March 1989. And now Iceland celebrates Beer Day on the 1st of March every single year. Crazy fact number 6. Imitation beer. was also forbidden. While beer was still officially banned in Iceland from 1935 to 1989, Icelanders could still buy as much wine and spirits as they wanted. The closest thing you could get to a proper beer was Pilsner with 2.25% of alcohol, which is still the only beer you can buy in the supermarkets in Iceland today. In the early 1980s, the Icelanders started to travel more, familiarizing themselves with the beer culture of the rest of Europe. The first ever tavern to open in Iceland was... I cannot pronounce it. In Reykjavik downtown, where bartenders started mixing Pilsner with vodka and whiskey to make a so-called imitation beer, which had an alcohol percentage of roughly 5%. This drink quickly became one of the most popular in Iceland, and other bars started making their versions of fake beer. But the Icelanders, spoiled by international travel, quickly agreed that this imitation beer has nothing to do with the real beer. In 1985, after lots of complaints about uncleanness of the bars serving this fake beer, the Icelandic government decided to ban this imitation beer as well. Interesting fact number 7, or Takk fyrir, síðast.
Takk fyrir, síðast.
When Icelanders meet after having party or just gathering together, they usually say
Takk fyrir, síðast,
which means thank you for the last time. It might sound odd, but this is an Icelandic way to acknowledge that they really enjoyed a lot last time we spent together. Cool fact number 8, or the Icelandic Elves. Yes, many Icelanders still believe in elves, or the Huldufólk, the hidden people. There is even a belief that building the roads through elf territory might result in terrible consequences. And the Icelandic belief in elves is so strong that the Icelandic Road and Coastal Administration Department has a 5 pages standard reply for requirements and complaints about the elves. Of course, not every Icelander believes in elves, and there are varying levels of belief, with some hardcore believers and some more on the fence. But the folklore and legend of Icelandic elves is a huge part of the culture of the island. Cool fact number 9, and single-lane bridges. When you drive across Icelandic countryside, you might come across single-lane bridges passing over crystal clear, gorgeous Icelandic rivers. They are relics from decades ago, when the cars were so few and so far between that making two-way bridges seemed extravagant. Today, however, the increase of traffic in Iceland means that extra care should be taken at those bridges. If there is a car coming from the opposite direction, make sure it will give you way. If it's not, well, you must give way to it. Number 10, and Arctic Fox. One of the cutest creatures I've ever seen. Iceland has this amazing native mammal, and it's the Arctic Fox. It's thick white, sometimes blue or brown coat, changing its color depending on the season. So it blends into Icelandic rugged landscape, and it makes it a very tricky animal to spot. The other mammals you can see in Iceland, the cow, sheep, reindeers or horses, were all brought by settlers. The Arctic fox is thought to have arrived on Iceland after the last ice age, when the sea between Greenland and Scandinavia was frozen. Number 11, and shoes off, please. It's not strictly a law, but the Icelanders, same as Norwegians, don't really like people who are walking into their houses wearing their shoes. In Iceland, exactly the same as in Norway, we always leave our shoes by the front door. All flats and the houses have a specially dedicated area by the front door, where you take off your coat, scarves, hats, gloves and shoes. Nordic people in general find it offensive when people wearing their boots indoors, but it might also have something to do with the weather. Number 12, and Icelandic horses are forbidden to return. One of the most interesting facts about Iceland is that once they leave the country, Icelandic horses are forbidden to be returned. Icelandic horses are pure breed, having been isolated for more than 1,000 years, and are prized across the world for their hardiness. Iceland is the country which is completely free from hoof and mouth diseases, so they cannot take a risk of re-importing the horse once it has left Icelandic soil. Number 13, and film intermission. If you go to the cinema in Iceland, there is always an intermission roughly in the middle of each movie. It's a chance to go to the toilet or fill in your drink or popcorn. Cinemas in Iceland make the most of their profit during intermission. It's very unlikely that this custom will be abandoned in the nearest future. Number 14, and Iceland is a nation of peace. Iceland is not just peaceful in terms of population and quiet wilderness. It also doesn't have an army, air force or navy. It relies solely on nature for its defense. Of course, there is a coast guard to keep fishermen and sailors safe. The coast guard saw some action during Cold Wars throughout the 20th century, the conflict over fishing rights in the North Atlantic. After a series of skirmishes, Iceland won without the use of established military. Number 15, and you will not find a Big Mac in Iceland. There are only 2 countries in Europe that don't have McDonald's. Okay, 3 if you include the Vatican. And Iceland is one of them. A lone outpost of the US burger chain operated in central Reykjavik for a few years. But the financial crisis made it go bankrupt in 2008. McDonald's had always struggled to win over Icelandic public anyway, with the locals favoring the Hamburgerbullen restaurant from his burger joint. Of course, there are plenty of burger places in Iceland, including, sorry for my Icelandic, Hagavagnin and Smas. You just will not find an actual Big Mac while you're here. Number 16, and Yule Lads. Instead of globally famous Santa Claus, Icelandic kids have a pleasure to deal with 13 Yule Lads, who are visiting them one by one 13 days before Christmas. Kids leaving their shoes out on the window ledge, and if they have been good, the shoes will be filled with sweets. But if they've been bad, they will wake up and find their shoes full of rotten potatoes. The Yule Lads used to be much more terrifying. But in 1746, the parents were officially banned from winding their children up with scary tales of monsters. Each Yule Lad has a distinctive personality and proclivity, from stealing sausages to licking spoons and slamming doors and keep everyone awake. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this one too. Hope you enjoyed. What was your favorite interesting fact about Iceland? Please let me know in the comments down below. And as our tradition goes, I will see you next week, guys. See you later. I love you so much. Love you. Stay safe. Be happy. Love you. Bye.